Document versus create. There's a debate around. I believe Gary Vee is a big speaker behind this, but there are other people who talk about it as well. Document versus create is a big debate. What do you think? Break it down first, what it is.
The philosophy of Gary is don't create content because it's time consuming, it's resources consuming, it's something that is difficult to do unless you have some experience in it. And it's absolutely true. This is absolutely the case. What Gary is suggesting to do is document your day on social media. You had a good meeting right now, take out your phone, share whatever you can. Or you went to a conference, share that on social media. Keep sharing. Keep yourself in a mindset of always be sharing on social media and document your process. Not necessarily as a thought leader, just as a participant in the marketplace. And it has a lot of good aspects to it because it takes the level of content creation from here and take it basically almost to zero on the one end. On the other end, I would argue that it doesn't necessarily create interesting, consumable on the other end.
So I watched Gary Vee's argument around that, and I think he's addressing it to the mass audience. Like if he even admits that quality is the variable that you win on, but quantity is the variable that you find the right quality. So he it's not like he says always document. He says document to get you started. But let's go back on social media wave of 2008 to 2012, all the YouTubers and everything. The biggest rising sector was filmmaking because they were naturally born creators.
Absolutely.
They were in that industry and they took advantage of it very quickly. So everybody else thought, so I have to be a creator. I have to be a cool camera person, whatever. To me, that was natural. I loved it. I loved the hobby. So I jumped on it and I liked that creative aspect of it. But when I came across this document versus create debate, what resonated to me was how I die to know what my dad went through when he was my age, or my grandfather went through when he was my age. And now I have the ability to document my life, even if it has one single view and that's my kid. That's super valuable. All of a sudden you're like, I don't want views online. I want this for my kid. That, it's super cool that you have your history instead of biography on a piece of paper. It's a different type of content. It's video.
This is pure documentation.
And pure. It's the 27-year-old Reza talking directly. And this is for the future, whoever's watching. I'm 27 talking to my future self. But that's a cool part. I was fascinated by that mentality that all of a sudden I was like, this is more interesting in terms of, building that reputation for yourself, whether it's for your business, your reputation, and it brings transparency, it brings authenticity, and then you can create on the side too. So I love that document aspect, and I think create and document has place for each.
I think you can overdo both. So if you are focusing on creation, and we had a lot of conversation about it, both of us want to produce content for real. But the level of entry is sometimes too high and too time consuming, that if you have your own business and other things going, it's almost impossible to really produce that level of content that you want. So on the other hand, barrier for entry is very high. You don't even do it. On the second hand, if I would document everything that I do, which is mostly emails and meetings and Zoom calls, who would care about that? And also, a lot of the information that I'm talking about is super sensitive and I cannot really share that. So what am I going to document exactly?
I love that because
there is a balance between them.
I've had that dilemma, and let me tell you where I ended up. The conclusion that I came up with. Number one, you're absolutely right. You can overdo both. You can talk about what's going on in your day for hours and hours.
By the way, I'm sure you saw those people online, and you watch them a few times, and then you opt out, and you don't really pay attention.
Because if you overdo documentation, it means that the other person have to live your life to watch it. then what about their own life? They don't have time. They don't have 24 hours in one day to watch it's just insane.
Just you talking about what you did and that's it.
It's just insane. And all of a sudden,
Where's the value?
There's the value, exactly.
Yeah.
Over creating is also, I think, too much production, too much fake.
Overcreating is the barrier for entry, I would argue. If you have your own system rolling where you can create good content in an efficient manner,
but over creating, I think.
But getting to this stage is extremely difficult.
But I think for a non-media person, let's say a startup founder or a business person, that is, if you're a filmmaker, over creating is your practice. It's like me going, I don't know, to gym.
Yeah, it's not over then. It's creating.
It's creating.
Yeah, they are efficient about it. They know what they do. They can set up everything.
But I cannot see a business person or a real estate professional or whoever, a startup founder, spend 80% of their week to create, content. It just doesn't.
Maybe in the beginning, I mean, everything is possible, right? So maybe in the beginning it will take absolutely more time together. And I'm not saying no one should do it. I think absolutely we should do it. Maybe even us, we should try and get to it at some level. I think content strategy, which we'll have another episode on that. I think that will really help, streamline that process before going into it and knowing, just like this podcast, why it's so the level of entry is relatively low for us, because the strategy is very clear. So we know exactly the format and what we're going to do. So we got into a stage that we can do an episode every week.
But I have a point here. So my point is the people who are successfully doing it, I feel like they have a amazing balance, it's an art between the document and create, that you can't barely see the line. They are documenting, but selectively the highlights, and they're pulling out creating type of content that is valuable from their document. So let's say, for an example, I'm not going to document my entire week, but throughout the week, I had some experiences that led me to some new understanding. Then I bring it to camera as a documentation that, hey guys, I went through this challenge, and then I make a spin that here's the valuable piece of advice that I learned this week. If you resonate with it, here's what you can learn. So I think people are doing it really good, are in between those lines. Now, in terms of sensitive stuff, there were so many things about my life that the moment I heard about documenting, I was like, I want to capture these for myself, for future, family, whatever the case is. But I cannot share it on the internet. Like, it's just inappropriate. And I don't know at this time if it's the right thing. What I did, I started a voice journal. Similar to this podcast, but it's not a podcast. I grab my phone as I'm driving or as I'm walking, and I do like literally 30, 40 minutes a day. It's like a journal. I share my entire day, what happened with work, what happened personally, everything. And in my head, none of it may see the light, but one day I may take 30 seconds or a minute clips from that. And I think that's super valuable. That's one way of documenting.
That's an investment that might pay off or not
but
for future content.
But I don't look at it that way. Yeah. I look at it as I'm thinking out loud. I get new ideas while I'm doing it. I'm journaling, same way that people write. I just like the voice. And I don't care that if it works out later or not, but I like the idea of
how are you going
recording.
To find the pieces of content 2, 3, 5, 6 years from now?
There are already AI, but I think it's going to be way more advanced in future.
So you can search.
Upload the entire audio and start searching.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I'm doing that a lot on Document. And lastly, let's talk about